There are a ton of NBA records out there that I am sure all of you haven't heard of. Today's video is part 3 of our NBA record series that you didn't know about. And we're going to start it off with the person who holds the record for the highest number of assists in a single half of an NBA game. This was back on February 27th, 1959. Hall of Famer Bob Cousy was playing for the Boston Celtics, and they were up against the Minneapolis Lakers. Keep in mind that this is the era where Elgin Baylor was dominating, so this game was not going to be easy for Boston. Guess what? He had a total of 19 assists in just one half of basketball. Not only did he manage to set a record assist count in one of the highest scoring games in NBA history, but he also managed to score 31 points that same night. His total assist count reached 28 by the end of that game, and he was also the first player ever to accumulate 5,000 assists in his career. In the 13 seasons that he spent with the Celtics, he held a total of 8 NBA assist titles, averaging a career high of 9.5 assists per game in the 1959-60 season. Now, while we're on the topic of talking about career highs, we cannot forget about the Brooklyn Nets' controversial sensation at the time, Kyrie Irving. Normally, a player's debut game with the new team is about getting a feel for the offense that they're transitioning into and getting accustomed to the new playbook. Not too many debut games turn into memorable performances, but boy, Kyrie's was different. He set the record for the most points ever in a debut game, racking up 50 points against the Minnesota Timberwolves on October 23, 2019. The only bad part about that night for Irving was that the Nets lost that game by just 1 point, 127-126. He did everything he could though for Brooklyn, shooting 17 for 33, 7 for 14 from behind the arc, 9 for 10 from the line, along with adding on 8 rebounds and 7 assists. There's one player that holds the record for most consecutive free throws missed in a single game. This is one of those special moments in history that you do not want to be known for, and it happened on April 14th, 1990. The unlucky record holder in this case was Chris Dudley. Same guy that got thrown to the ground by Shaq after getting dunked on. Chris Dudley, yeah, you guys remember him. Dudley and the Nets were up against the Pacers that day, and let's just say he wanted to get out of that arena as fast as possible. 1 for 18 from the line and missed a record-breaking 13 consecutive free throws at one point during that game. The best thing that Dudley did on that day was grab rebounds as he finished with 12, but I sure hope he went straight into the gym after that and shot about 1,000 free throws, because that is horrible. Now let's move on to a record that is unique to say the least. If you've ever wondered who has the most offensive rebounds in a single game, I'm going to save you some time looking it up, and I'll let you know it's Moses Malone. This happened in a game between the Rockets and the Supersonics on February 11th, 1982. He was an absolute beast on the offensive glass, pulling down a record-breaking 21 offensive rebounds and then adding on 11 defensive rebounds that day. A little double-double with 38 points and 32 total rebounds led to the Rockets winning that game by a final score of 117-100. Moses didn't let the ball leave his team's possession, but I'm going to tell you about a player who was the king of getting it back. Kareem AbdulJabar holds the record for the most defensive rebounds pulled down in a single game, and this record was set back in 1975. He was playing for the Lakers, and even though they failed to make the playoffs that season, they did get off to a good start. On December 14th, Kareem set this record while going up against the Detroit Pistons. So how many rebounds did he get to break this record? 20, 25? Nah, Kareem went out and grabbed 29 defensive rebounds that game and added on 5 more offensive ones. His 34 total rebounds on that day, paired with his 27 points, 8 blocks, and 6 assists, fueled Los Angeles to a 110-100 win. And staying on the topic of assists, I want to talk about the player who has the record for the most assists in a game while their team still took an L. Guy Rodgers racked up a total of 28 assists in a loss back on March 14th, 1963, when he was playing for the San Francisco Warriors. They were up against the St. Louis Hawks on that day, and no, this was actually not one of Wilt Chamberlain's famous 70-plus point games. Rodgers' 28 assists that day managed to tie Bob Cousy's record for most assists in a single game just 4 years after it was originally set. Unfortunately, like we mentioned, the Hawks were just a bit too strong for the Warriors on that day, and they lost by a final score of 114 to 109. At least for this next player, all their efforts weren't for nothing as they helped their team to a close win. The record for most steals in a single half is held by TJ McConnell, who was and is still with the Pacers to this day. Back in 2021, on March 3rd, Indiana was up against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and in the first half, he pulled off a total of 9 perfectly executed steals. This was no ordinary day for McConnell though, as he went on to have one of the best games of his entire career that day. He ended with 16 points, shot a perfect 8 for 8 from the field, finished with 10 total steals, and dished out 13 assists, giving him a triple-double. All his hard work on the defensive end led to the Pacers winning that game by just 3 points over the Cavs, 114 to 111. Oh, and speaking of steals, there's also a record for the highest number of steals gotten by a player without having any other main statistic. I'm talking about no assists, rebounds, blocks, or even points. This record is held by Stacy Ogman, and it was set in 2001. He was playing for the Portland Trail Blazers in a game against the Utah Jazz. On that day, Ogman managed to pull off a total of 4 steals, and that was it. Oh, and he did have 2 turnovers and fouls, but those aren't exactly considered as main stats. It's a pretty random record, I know, but yeah, at the end of the day, it does exist. And now, while we're on the topic of defense, we have to talk about the record for the most blocks in a single game. This record is held by Elmore Smith, and it was set back in 1973. It was when Smith was playing for the Los Angeles Lakers in a game against the Trailblazers yet again. On October 28th, he managed to block 17 shots taken by Portland. Talk about a force near the basket, because this man did not let anything get by him. Now, I don't think it's a stretch by any means to say that Smith, Gail Goodrich, who added on 49 points, and Jerry West's 14 assists were the main 3 reasons that LA won the game that day. Those 3 Lakers were clicking on all cylinders in their 13-point win. Now, there's another awkward record here, and I don't think anybody would want to hold this one, but somebody has to take the fall. That man is going to be Joel Anthony, and this is the record for the longest time before a player managed to get a point, rebound, steal, assist, or block. Anthony was playing for the Heat at the time back in 2011 in a game between Miami and, once again, for the 3rd time in a row, the Portland Trail Blazers. He was on the court for 28 minutes and 46 seconds before getting a number up in any of the main stat categories. The Heat ended up winning that game by 7 points, but it's safe to say that it was not because of Joel's efforts, as he finished that game with a plus-minus of -9 while he was on the court. And since we're on the topic of longest time without a stat records, let's look at another one here. This time, it's the record for the longest time before a field goal was made, and it's held by Greg Ostertag, who was playing center for the Utah Jazz. He set this record in a game against the 76ers on January 6, 1998. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, how long could a center possibly go without a field goal in a game? 20 minutes, 25, 30 tops maybe? Well, the Big O went a total of 48 minutes and 43 seconds without making a single field goal the entire game. His stat line by the end of the night consisted of 3 of 8 from the line, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 11 blocks, and 1 steal. Okay, I think we've covered more than enough unique records for the time being, so let's move on to a more impressive one. The quickest triple-double ever recorded. The player who holds this record is none other than Nikola Jokic. It took him only 14 minutes and 33 seconds to hit double digits in points, rebounds, and assists against the Milwaukee Bucks on February 15, 2018. His amazing performance ended up leading the Nuggets to a win that day by a final score of 134 to 123. Honestly, I wasn't too surprised at this record, considering Jokic is one of the best players in the league right now, and he gets a ton of triple-doubles. His final stat line that day was 30 points, 17 assists, and 15 rebounds. Speaking of triple-doubles, did you know that there's a player who holds the record for being the shortest player to get a triple-double? You guys could probably guess who this one belongs to. 5 feet 9 inches tall, Isaiah Thomas holds this record, and it was set back in 2014. He wasn't playing for the Celtics though, as you might think. He was playing for the Sacramento Kings, and it was a game against the Wizards on March 18th. In that game, he scored 24 points, got 11 boards, and 10 assists. This just goes to show you that even players under 6 feet tall can go out and dominate the bigs on any given night. All that effort from Thomas led to the Kings winning by 6 points. Now here's another outstanding record. Imagine having all the pressure on you in the final few moments of a crucial game. Scoring during those last few seconds takes everything out of a player. You'd think the most points scored within a span of 10 seconds would be what, 4 or 5, right? No. The record is actually held by Reggie Miller, and he got 8 points in a period of just 10 seconds back in 1995 in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Semis. To be exact, he scored 8 points in 8.9 seconds. His three-pointers were the sole reason why the Pacers won the game that night. He's definitely one of the most decorated clutch players in the history of the NBA. We've covered a ton of records in this video pertaining to just a single game, but what about the record for blocks in a whole season? Well, this record is held by the two-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year, Mark Eaton. This giant stood at 7 feet 4 inches tall, making it look like he was a man amongst boys when he stepped on the court. He holds this record with a total of 456 blocks during the 1984-85 NBA season. He's one of the most decorated defensive players in history and also led the league in total blocks 4 out of his 11 years in the league. It was only right that eventually the Utah Jazz retired his number 53 in 1996 because of his defensive skill set. Also, rest in peace to Eaton as he passed away at the age of 64 back in 2021. So I hope you guys remember that record from earlier about the most rebounds in a single game by Kareem AbdulJabbar. Yeah, let's go back to another record that he owns, the record for the most double-digit scoring games in NBA history. The center, who is a 6-time NBA MVP, was always a dominant player whenever he stepped on the court, having a total of 1,509 games in which he scored in double digits. It's no wonder that in 1995, AbdulJabbar was eventually elected into the Hall of Fame, and in May of 2021, the NBA created the Kareem AbdulJabbar Social Justice Award, which is given to a current player who pursues social justice and upholds the NBA's values of equality, respect, and inclusion. Now here comes a record that die-hard fans are not going to like too much. This record is for the most field goals missed throughout a career. You're never going to guess who it is held by, and maybe you will. With a whopping 14,481 field goals missed, this record is held by the late, great Kobe Bryant. The legend might have dominated on the court, but he also missed a ton of shots in the process. But it does look like he won't be holding that record for too much longer, since LeBron is en route to passing that number very, very soon. At the time of recording this video, LeBron is within 50 missed field goals of passing Kobe, so he's very likely to get it done in this 2023-24 season. Now this next one is going to surprise you. The record for the most three-point field goals made by a center in NBA history is currently sitting at 973, and it's held by KarlAnthony Towns, and he's done it in just 571 games. Oh, and as long as Cat stays in the league for a while, I can't see anybody passing this record because he's only in his 9th season with the Minnesota Timberwolves. There's a real chance that he gets to around 1,700 to 2,000 by the end of his career, as long as he can stay healthy. And normally, it would take a lot of experience on the court before a player can get a triple-double, just getting accustomed to the league and whatnot. But for Josh Giddey, it seemed pretty easy. He holds the record for being the youngest player to record a triple-double, getting this achievement while being only 19 years and 82 days old. This record was set on January 2nd, 2022 against the Mavericks, and by the end of that game, he had 17 points, 13 rebounds, and 14 assists, along with adding on 4 steals. And finally, while Josh may be the youngest player to ever record a triple-double, there's also the record for being the oldest to get one. This record is held by none other than Karl Malone, one of the greatest power forwards in NBA history. The mailman set this record at the age of 40 on November 28, 2001. Malone recorded a triple-double of 10 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists for the Lakers in a game against the Spurs, and the Lakers were ultimately victorious with the final score being 103-87. Pretty fitting that Giddey and Malone would hold these records together, I must say. But anyways, as always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out some of my others and hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you in the next one.